on this Wednesday, we like to do win total Wednesdays. It's something you talked about off the top. Vegas has certainly, shall we say, increased the menu as the years have gone on, right? There's more options on said menu.
Very well put.
Thank you. Because, sometimes if you go to a restaurant, I don't want a 6-page menu. That means you don't specialize in anything, right? I'd like maybe a 2-pager, but you want options.
Correct.
We're going to give you a good option here. Adjusted win totals here on Win Total Wednesday. Now, let's look at some of the higher ones on the board. The Buccaneers have now been adjusted. This is interesting because they were right around this number, and they are 2-0. But I don't want to say they've underperformed in those wins, but offensively, they haven't exactly jumped off the page like the Eagles have. If you've been charting the Eagles, Amal, you could have gotten the Eagles in the summer 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, and now the Bueller number is gone. We're up to 11.5 on the Fly Eagles Fly. Packers 10.5, Rams 10.5, Vikings still holding, but it's plus money, plus $1.15, 10.5, and then the Niners 9.5. I'm stunned to see the Cowboys and the Giants at the same number of 8.5. We don't know when Super Dak Prescott's going to be coming back. We don't know if he's going to be super. So when you look at the first page of the leaderboard, Counselor, which team might you be more apt to play?
Well, I think the Buccaneers total is high, and I thought you brought up a very good point. I don't think Tampa's been overly impressive. I think the schedule's worked out well. Dallas hasn't looked particularly strong. New Orleans, Jameis looked like the old Jameis, what we saw in Tampa in that game against the Buccaneers in that second half. Philly looks great. I like the Packers over 10.5. I still think the 11-6 is well within reach of this team. I have some concerns about the Rams at 10.5. Vikings 10.5. That seems a bit optimistic. They feel like a 10-7 type of team. The Niners, to me, can get over 9.5 wins. I think when you look at them, I think 10-7 is a good number for them, maybe 11-6, because I think with Jimmy Garoppolo, look, nobody criticizes Jimmy Garoppolo more than I do, but what he does give you is efficiency and knows how to manage the game. Mm-hmm. And that's what you need. And I don't think Trey Lance was necessarily at that level yet. Dallas 8.5.
It feels a bit optimistic, doesn't it?
Well, look, you got to play the Giants twice. You've got to play Washington twice. I realistically think if they win this game on Monday night, they could go 4-0 right there. That's 5 wins for them.
Wow.
Then they got to win 4 games in the remaining 11 games. So for me, I think that's a possibility. That's, again, if you agree on them beating Washington twice and the Giants at least 1 out of 2 times.
I look at I'm with you on one team that you already noted, and it was a team that I didn't play this year before the season, but I played them last year, and that was the Packers.
Yeah.
Because, again, I'm looking at the division, right? So we already saw they lost to Minnesota. So that's already – you only have one more tough road ahead against Minnesota. We'll find out what Detroit is. They might be better. That could be scrappy 2 games that they have there. But they already beat the tar out of the Bears once. They're going to do it again. So I kind of like your play in the Packers – over 10.5. And it's something I alluded to with Steve Mackinnon. It's who doesn't trust Aaron Rodgers? He's the 2-time reigning defending MVP. If I don't trust the rest of the receiving core, you know what I do trust? The defense.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to keep them in a lot of games, and Rodgers will be able to coax enough plays out of the kid receivers to be able to manage more games instead of Rodgers going out there saying, I got to light it up. He doesn't have to do that, right? You can rely on the running game, rely on the defense, and maybe win games differently than we've seen in years past.
I would agree with you. I think this Packers defense is far better than they get credit for. It's always the focal point of being the offense and Aaron Rodgers. What is Matt LaFleur calling? But I think this team has a lot more balance than they get credit for. So for me, I'm not ready to back down from Green Bay. I still think they're going to have a very good year.
Let's go to the second page of the board here in the NFC.
Yeah, Dave, we're just going to jump in real quick on that Packers thing. I think this is really a kind of hold or fire on that situation right now this week with that game. Depending on how you feel about this game this weekend, you might want to bet the over Amal's talking about if you like the Packers this weekend. Or hold off, maybe see, because they've got a light schedule coming up, just like we just talked about. Patriots at home the following week. Then they got the Giants at home, Jets at home. Then they go on the road from a Commander. So that schedule really gets soft here after this game in Tampa.
Yeah. Kelley, it's a great point. And if you guys remember last year when they got off to a similar start, terrible week 1 against the Saints, they come back, they win week 2. Then they won all those games in the middle, and they were ugly performances.
Correct.
Right, like the Steeler game, if you remember that one. The Christmas Day game against the Browns could have easily lost, and yet they ended up winning 13 games. So they did get a lot of breaks, but I'm with Kelley on that. And with you, Amal, if you like the Packers, I think it's a playable number right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think this is one you would strongly consider. I still like them to win the division. Look, they did lose that head-to-head, but they got a return trip from the Vikings in the second to last week of the regular season for the division. It may not even matter at that point in time. I think Green Bay is a team because, Sean King talks about this all the time on his show. These teams that don't play their guys in the preseason, they have a rough start in the regular season. Now, they had a good game, manageable division game against the Bears. They get that one. They're 1-1 in the division. This team will be fine long term. I still have some concerns about Minnesota, and I thought Steve brought up a great point, Mackinnon, when he was just on with us. Minnesota, for the last 6 quarters, has really struggled offensively. The other thing is, as good as Jalen Hurts was, and not taking anything away from his performance, I thought guys were running absolutely free in the secondary against the Vikings. It wasn't just a matter of Hurts putting the ball on the money. There was nobody in the area code on these guys.
No, and you got to play them differently than the way they defend. The Vikings zone did not work against Jalen Hurts. I think you're going to see a lot of teams, not trying to get too in the weeds here, but they're going to play a lot. They're going to blitz a lot. And then you'll see if Jalen Hurts can really recognize that and pick up those guys. I'd be surprised to see those soft zones like they played on Monday night.
Yeah, but when I look at Hurts and how much he's improved his passing game, to me, he now becomes a huge dual threat. Lamar showed it on Sunday against the Dolphins because his passing was very good. And that's what my always positive with Baltimore was that if Lamar plays well in the passing game, he becomes unstoppable. And I think Jalen Hurts has that potential. Now, I don't want to overreact based on 2 games, but let's see if he can put it together for the course of a season. If his accuracy continues to be at this level, then with his physical strength and his legs, and I would say pound for pound, he's probably as tough as any quarterback in the NFL, right? Him and Josh Allen are probably the 2 strongest guys at quarterback.
Yeah, you don't want to tackle that guy all the time.
No, these are 2 guys. I'm just looking at a replay. It's funny we mentioned Josh Allen. I just saw him throwing down with a stiff arm somebody against the Rams here. I mean, it's like, it's impressive. So to me, it really comes down to if he can throw the ball with accuracy, then all of a sudden you can't stop him.
Well, what do we see that he was doing 500-pound? 600 pounds?
I think it might have been 6. Was it 5?
It was 6.
600.
Yeah.
They were stealing my video.
Dave, I'm just glad that Amal's really fallen into the Jalen Hurts camp. I'm looking forward to that dinner he's going to be buying me here sometime this season.
If he doesn't
son of a gun, I forgot.
doesn't get benched at any time,
you know what? I thought
in the regular season.
But I will say one thing, Kelley. I am very steadfast in my positions, but I'm not a stubborn person. If I'm wrong, I got no qualms about admitting I'm wrong. And I got to tell you, right now, I could not have been more wrong on Jalen Hurts.
He does look great. I always called him Dak Prescott light coming out of Oklahoma because Dak there's similar features. Now it might be Dak could be Jalen Hurts light. They're flipping the script. It was the foregone conclusion. Dak Prescott's the best quarterback in the NFC East. I think.
Thank God you added the NFC East.
And that was the advantage for the Cowboys coming in, right? I think that people are flipping that narrative now, and they're saying Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback now in the NFC East.
Well, I'll put a positive spin for you. Okay. Dak Prescott is the second best quarterback in the NFC East because the rest of the other 2 guys can't even play, Daniel Jones and Carson Wentz. But
that wasn't the pick-me-up I was looking for.
Hey, use it how you like. I'm just giving you facts. Look, to me, I thought the big knock on Jalen Hurts, I watched him play pretty much every game between Alabama and Oklahoma. He just didn't throw the ball with accuracy. He went and worked out with Jordan Palmer this offseason, and you can see the vast improvement. I don't know if Jordan Palmer needs anyone to advertise for him more than what Jalen Hurts' accomplishments are. I mean, people should be lining up to go work with him based on what we've seen thus far. But can he sustain it? Now, look, they played Detroit and they played Minnesota. Neither of these teams are reminding people of the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears. So before we sit there and anoint this guy the man, I think we should slow down a little bit.
We'll try in hour number 2 to get some more win total Wednesdays here, but I think you're right on. You got to pump the brakes just a little bit before we anoint some of these people. We were talking about win total Wednesdays in the NFC. We did the good teams last hour. Let's start off hour number 2 here and talk about, maybe some of the lower numbers in the NFC that we might see. Now, on the upper echelon of page 2, if you will, is the Saints at 8.5. Now, you can get plus money there if you think this is a 9-win football team at plus $1.15. I think that really says about one thing. Do you trust Jameis Winston? Because he was not good in the second half against Tampa. Now, they're not going to play Tampa every week. We understand that. And the rest of the South doesn't look that good when you look at the Falcons and the Panthers. The Cardinals, all of a sudden, minus $1.40 to win 8 games. 7.5 is the total. Same with the Commanders. Now, that's just minus $1.05. There is everybody's America's team now. Hard Knocks, the Lions, 6.5, juiced heavily to the over, minus $1.40. They're 1-1. The Bears, 6.5. You think they'll win 7 games? That's plus $1.05. And then the lower totals I was mentioning them all. Seattle is a 6-win team. Over is $1.05. Under minus $1.15. The Panthers 0-2, by the way. They are over 5.5 is minus $1.20. And then the Falcons also 0-2, minus $1.20. If you think this is a 5-win football team, do you see any numbers there that you think might be playable?
I think the Bears under 6.5. I still have a lot of question marks and concerns. They are showing me that they don't have faith in Justin Fields. Maybe it's an offensive line situation because I think it's like Pittsburgh. Their line is terrible, but they're able to run the ball effectively. So I don't know if it's necessarily – I just think the play calling – listen, to me, you're not going to win a Super Bowl this year if you're Chicago. Just get back there and let him rip it. If either he can play or he can't. And at some point in time, you got to figure it out, right? What is this, year number 2 for him?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you've got potentially 2 more seasons and a potential 5th year if you decide to pick up the option. But you've got to make some moves. If he's scared, he's scared. But I thought his confidence grew in week number 1. You could see it in the second half of that 49ers game. I didn't watch much of that game against the Packers, but I looked at the stats. The passing game just didn't seem like it was existent. They don't throw the ball because I was looking at the number of plays. I'm like, these guys just don't want to throw the football, do they?
I think. Well, Mo, the thing you know as well as anybody, especially here on this show, I mean, the quality. We didn't have many NFL quality quarterbacks coming out in that draft last year. We know how many there are this year. And that's always my opinion, too. I don't care how bad the kid plays. You're not winning a Super Bowl anyways. You can't let him throw the ball only 11 times, though, like they did last week. You got to find out what you have and be ready to move on. I think what the Cardinals did, as much as what people might knock Kyler Murray right now, what the Cardinals did with Rosen and were able to move on from him right away, that's the way you got to do it in today's NFL. You're not winning without a quarterback.
But to your point, when we talked about Aaron Judge an hour ago, and you said, would you sign him? And I said, look, I would have certain parameters in place because of his age. I'm not going to sign him to a 10-year deal. It amazes me that in baseball they continue to give these contracts. It's the same thing. I didn't understand why the Arizona Cardinals decided to sign Kyler Murray to a long-term deal. And it's the reason why with some of these younger quarterbacks, you just got to let them go out there and
figure it out.
Yeah, like the 49ers, give them credit. They have Jimmy Garoppolo and they decided to play Trey Lance. You look at the Chicago Bears, they're not taking the training wheels off of this guy. Either he can play or he can't. Look, I'm in the camp that he's not really a particularly good quarterback, but let's find out for sure.
6.5, that win total again. You look at the schedule, though, of the Bears. Here's the interesting thing. By the way, they're favored this week at home against the Texans by 3 field goal. So, I'm with you guys. I think this is an underplay. Now, it's juiced to the under minus $1.25 at 6.5 wins. But when you look at the schedule, it's easy. But then again, I look at it this way. There's only a couple elite teams in the NFC. We've talked about how down this conference is. So you look at potential, and I say potential, winnable games. This week, they're favored against the Texans. Then they play the Giants. Even though they're 2-0, it doesn't scare you. They've got the Commanders in a couple weeks. The New England hasn't been world beaters. The Cowboys might not have Dak Prescott. Then you get the Lions. Then you go to the Falcons. Then you have the Jets. I mean, those are some winnable games. It gets tough for the last month of the season. They got the Packers, the Eagles, the Bills, the Lions, and Vikings. This could be all losses by the end of the year. But it is soft in the middle. But the problem is everybody looks at the Bears and goes, well, that's our win.
Correct.
That's the way they look at the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is an important game for Chicago. What's interesting, if the Bears win this game, they could potentially, and we talked about it last week, saying the Giants should win that game at home. But if the Bears come in with a victory against Houston, I think it changes the dynamic of how they approach that one. They've got a game at Minnesota, then the Commanders at home. They've got some games they can do some things with. Lions at Falcons at Jets.
Winnable, but the other teams are saying the exact same thing.
Exactly right. But to me, I'm looking at Justin Fields' career numbers. In a game against the Buccaneers last year, he threw the ball 32 times, 22 for 32. He doesn't have great numbers, 19 for 27, 17 for 29. You got to let him get out there and throw the ball. I mean, if you're not going to do that, then you've got to move on. Kelley, Dave, I don't know how big of an NBA guy you are, but I always love what Sam Hinkie was doing in Philadelphia. I was like, they were criticizing him. If you are not going to win a championship, that's what makes sports great. There's only one goal. You don't have a good year by getting to a conference championship game. It's either winning the Super Bowl. 31 teams fail in the NFL every year. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not in a position to win a Super Bowl, then you've got to look to restructure the organization to where you can win. And either Fields is the guy or he's not. But Kelley made the point the draft is very top-heavy in quarterbacks. You look at Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. You got guys in there that are potential franchise guys. And the way they restructure these contracts where you have a 4-year deal on a rookie, it's not going to hamstring you where you're giving the guy 4 years, $60 million. Make a decision and either move on with them or just say, you know what? It's like we're going for it.
Absolutely love that. By the way, you did a little Denzel Washington there. Just make a decision. Make a decision.
What is that from?
That's from Training Day. How do you want it, Jake? Make a decision. Let's go ahead to the AFC.
I didn't know I was working with Roger Ebert.
Well, after 3 weeks, you know now.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go to the AFC. And obviously, when you look at the Bills, 12.5 wins, and you go, my goodness, they're going to get to 13, right? Well, you got to pay a premium on it, minus $1.65. $1.65 for the Bills to be a 13-win team. But you go, they're going to lose 5 times for me to lose that bet?
Dave, I would agree with you. When you look at this Buffalo Bills schedule, I think it's very difficult to see that many losses in there. Now, they've got the Chiefs coming up here fairly soon. They're at Miami. This is an important game. Look, the thought process of what the Dolphins are and the Buffalo Bills are will all potentially change if Miami were to win this game. You've got at the Dolphins, at the Ravens, Steelers at home, at the Chiefs. So your 3 of the next 4 are on the road against teams that are going to be potential competitors in the AFC. Then you have a bye week, you get Green Bay at home, and then the schedule gets really, really manageable. At the Jets, Vikings at home, Browns at Lions, at Patriots, Jets, Dolphins, at Bears, at Bengals, Patriots.
So again, this is our pro tip in hour number 1, but you have to look at the schedules before you make these either to win the division and or these adjusted win totals on a win total Wednesday. Because I think you just laid it out. You might want to, like a hold or fire scenario, you might want to hold on the Bills win total and see how they manage the next 4 weeks.
I tell you what, I bet the Bills before the season started back in late July, early August at minus 190 to win the division. And, to me, this team is so complete right now. I don't see them losing 5 games the point you made. When I mentioned the first part of the schedule, going through the first 8 weeks, 7 games because they have a bye before they play the Packers, at Dolphins, at Ravens, and at Chiefs, maybe they drop 2 games. They would, for me, in my opinion, for them to get to 5 losses, they would have to drop 3 of those games.
Right, because you look at the rest of the schedule, you just don't see 3 losses.
Correct.
In that really soft second half past the Packers when you got the Jets, and we'll see what the Browns, they're still not going to have Deshaun Watson. The Patriots, they'll be favored in probably all of those games. Every single one, whether it's the road or not. The Vikings coming into Buffalo could be a quote-unquote tough game, but they'll be favored in that. And the Dolphins come to Orchard Park. So they're going to be favored in just about every single game after the bye week.
I think they'll be favored in every game this year except the one at Kansas City.
Wow. So there it is. That's why it's juiced heavily, minus $1.65. Look at some of those other win total Wednesdays here. And again, the Chiefs have hopped back up. Now, I call this the division of death, and so far they've navigated it pretty well. They're 2-0 now with that big win in week number 2 against the Chargers. So you take that off the board for one of those tough games, but they still have 2 against the Raiders. We'll find out what the Raiders really are, and certainly 2 against the Broncos. That could still be tough sledding. When you look down that board, the Ravens 10.5, the over is even money. So is that an 11-win team, or is that the North going to beat each other up too?
No, look, I'm not the right guy to ask because I'm all in on the Ravens, so I'm going to go with the yes and the over. But, that loss was so crucial from a win standpoint because that's you don't have too many opportunities in the NFL. You got a total of 17, and you allow one of those to slip away. And Dave, when you look at these numbers on the win total, you're going to be right there, 9, 10, 11, 12 games, and it's going to come down to 3 plays in 3 games that whether you get over the total or you stay under the total. So I still think Baltimore's going to be there because I think when you look at the division, I think without Watt, the Steelers have done it kind of with smoke and mirrors. They compete, but they're just not good enough to win games. It took major mistakes by the Cincinnati Bengals for them to escape that game despite all the turnovers. They lose the game against New England. They've got Buffalo on deck, which we just mentioned. I think it's going to be a tough road for the Steelers. And then I look in there, Cincinnati. Look, the perception of Cincinnati changed based on 3 games. And to me, they're not as good as people think they are. The Browns are okay, but they need somebody who can do a little bit more than Jacoby Brissett. So I think the Ravens over 10.5 is still good here.
And the Bengals now have to win 9 games. They're 0-2 to hit that adjusted win total here on a Wednesday. The other team, very quickly, that I have questions about that I didn't think I would at this stage of the season is the Broncos. They have a win total of 9, juiced evenly, minus $1.10. They are 1-1. As unimpressive a 1-1 to start off with Nathaniel Hackett. Do you have concerns like I do that are they a 10-win football team, which I think we thought they would be at the beginning of the year?
Well, I wasn't buying on that. Look, I'm a huge Russell Wilson guy, but here's my problem. Everybody keeps telling me how great Denver is coming into the season. It's like, I think people sometimes say this about certain teams. And by the way, when they say they, I want to know who the hell they is. But How do they get to 10 wins? To your point, they've got to win 9 out of the next 15 games. And you look at the schedule very quickly here. They're at the Titans. They have the Chiefs, obviously, twice. They've got the Chargers twice.
Underdogs this week at home against the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the Cardinals at the Ravens. I don't see them going 9-6 in their next 15 games.
I don't remember Ferris being absent 9 times.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.